All right, welcome everyone. I'm teacher Nathan from Rights at Work, and this afternoon we'll be looking at O level paper 2021. Specifically, we'll be going through the situation, the visual stimulus as well as the comprehension text um, 3 this afternoon. Okay, sorry, text 2. This is still the old format. So let me just set the expectations for this TikTok first. I'm not here to give you all the answers. The answers can easily be found online. But I think the value that writers at work can provide online today is the skill sets needed, such that when you want to do your O level practice paper on your own, you are able to apply these skills in order to obtain your answers and eventually the distinction at the O levels. So I will not be so focused on giving you my answers, but rather I hope to impart some of the skills and the thought processes that I went through in order to get my answer. All right. So first thing, I want to go through the visual stimulus. So when we first look at a particular visual stimulus text, it's very important to always look at this first part here, the set of instructions, because we need to know what medium it is in. So for example, this is a web page. You may have other things like your posters, etc. But I think the important thing is actually what is this medium, because this will affect your target audience. If you have a poster that is placed at the lift lobby of your HDB flat, the target audience would be wider because people of all ages view the poster as compared to an Instagram post where probably the audience would be the younger crowd, right? So these are some of the small things that will help you in your answers later, but it's important that you take note of them when you first encounter this visual stimulus. The next thing that I want to draw your attention to is this big title here. Every poster and every website, etc., will always have this main focus. So when we look at the text, the idea is not to jump into the nitty gritty details, right? It's very wordy here, but rather is to take a look at this title and to ask yourself again, I already established perhaps a few target audience groups. So do I need to eliminate some of them? So maybe let's say if it's a web page, I may think it could be young families, teens, children. Now, if I look further down, this is an art exhibition. Would that mean that my target group may change? Probably, because art in itself is something that uh, you need to be of a certain maturity in order to appreciate, right? So these are the kind of thought processes that should go through your mind as you look at the text. Next, when we have this big idea here, or your primary idea, there are secondary ideas that will also be relevant, right? So these secondary ideas are linked to your big ideas. And that's the things that you need to look out for when we go down. So the big idea is there is some art exhibition. It's going to be quite a large scale one given the word 100 here. So what are the art exhibition? What is the art exhibition about? So you can see here, one of my secondary idea would be that the art exhibition is it tells you what is it for, and they also tell you the art activity. So how will it be carried out? And there's also a special event, art after dark. So they are trying to pay homage to some of the famous artists. So the idea about looking at the visual stimulus is not so much about going down to the details, and probably once you have finished reading it, you'll forget most of the details because they aren't really relevant to you unless perhaps you take O level art. But the idea is you need to know, okay, my big idea is on this art week, and I have one, two, three secondary ideas, such that when the question later that we'll see asks you about certain aspects of this poster, you know where to zoom in on, and you know how to tackle that question quickly with a short time span of your 1 hour 50 minutes during your paper 2. Your stimulus should take no more than 20 minutes. Okay, so I just like to draw everybody's attention to a few things inside this text. Okay, I believe most of you who are taking O levels will purchase this 10-year series soon. You can read the nitty gritty details for yourself, but I just like to uh, draw your attention to certain words and certain features. Okay, the first one, my first secondary idea is what this art exhibition and art week is for. And I think the important thing is here, creative journey. So we are looking at how this art week is able to enrich your creativity, to have some kind of growth, personal growth here. Okay, some kind of self improvement kind of idea. Next, there are many art activities here. I think eventually when you look through it, you don't have to remember it per se, but I think the idea is how would these activities affect your target audience. I think that is more important than trying to read and fill yourself with the information here. So, for example, you will see that over here, for example, your second one, you can learn firstly how to mix oil paints, find exact colors. You can see that this one is more catered towards the amateurs. While you can see here, when you have application of unusual fonts, there's this assumption that you are already well versed in what is unusual fonts, right? Over here, it will challenge you to reconsider. So you can see that the first and third activities are more geared towards people who are probably who paint during their free time and they know what they are doing. So it's this kind of this kind of appreciation of the content that is important. All right. Then lastly, you can observe that there are many events here, and these 100 exciting art events, it could mean, and it's also 5 different districts. Your districts are like your different towns: Ang Mo Kio, Bedok, Bishan. Each of these towns will have different makeup of the people. For example, Ang Mo Kio may have more elderly compared to Punggol, and all these will actually affect your target audience. So does it mean that it's actually increasing the reach to the target audience when there is this kind of information explicitly spelled out for you? All these things all these are your internal thought processes that should go through your mind as you look through the text. It's not so much about writing everything down here, because all these annotation will not give you marks per se. But I think it's more of having that thinking process being portrayed to you now, and hopefully during exam you can do these mental notes in your brain. Okay. With that, let's take a look at the questions for the visual stimulus. Okay, look at question 1. Look at the paragraph, the heading Singapore Art Week. Which phase suggests that the event offers the possibility of personal development? So you can see this is a very scary word, phase, because we are looking at more than one word. And usually, students who are unsure would be kiasu and quote the whole something that is something short of a sentence. And where you have excess words, you'll get penalized, and you just lose 1 mark like that, right? So when we look at phrases and look at this the later part of the question, which tells you it's regarding personal development, there are certain words that should come to your mind. For example, growth, or some kind of skill sets, so that when you need to have this thinking process, so that your phrase here answers directly to what the question is asking for, and you will not give extra information. So for this case, as I was pointing out to you earlier on the creative journey and how it invokes this sense of improvement and self realization, right? So that will be your answer. So it will be the phase is creative journey. Okay, so I'll just scroll down and show you which part of the text is from lah. Okay, so it's over here in this paragraph, Singapore Art Week, which phrase tells you that you can grow. Okay, you can observe that some people may put validate your creative journey, but is the first 2 words even necessary? Validate basically means that you're trying to you're going to keep tab, you're trying to be accountable for this growth, but you need to ask yourself whether this is even relevant in the first place. And how you know it's relevant is you got to ask yourself, what is personal development, right? And what I talked about earlier here already tells you that my answer should just be the last 2 words. Okay, let's take a look at the other questions. Look at the heading art activities and the information below. Which 2 activities are aimed at beginners? So you see over here, this is really a target audience, people who are interested in art but probably don't have that kind of experience to draw or design things like a professional. And you can see over here that the questions, when they test you, they don't test you based on the details. Okay, I'll put it this way. The answers here are the details. They are looking for details. But broadly speaking, the questions are always focused on a particular subheading. And that is where it is important for you to narrow down on the subheading and you ask yourself, so what is the main point? Because all these small main points in the subheading are what the questions are looking for. Okay? Because all these main points will eventually let you comprehend and sense make the whole text. All right, so let's take a look at art activities and how they are linked to beginners, which means people who are new. So if you can see here, this is one of our secondary ideas. So if you observe, the first one is that we talked about earlier, the using oil is very step by step. They use words like firstly, find the exact colors. Secondly, so you can see it's a step-by-step approach, which tells me it's catered towards amateurs. Next one, you can see installations. They introduce you. So there's an assumption that you don't have any idea. That's why they need to introduce this topic, this concept to you, which suggests again that it's meant for amateurs. Okay. So all these, when you look at all these words, they need to ring a bell already, and you need to make a mental note that these two activities are very different from graphics and painting landscapes. Okay, so for this question, how my answer will be as such. Which two activities are in? They just want you to list down the two activities. So the two activities using oil and installation. I don't see any value in elaborating because they are asking you which means it's just a pure listing question. Okay, I think this question for question 3 is a bit difficult because we don't have the photograph, but basically, if you have the photograph, which is under here, you'll be able to describe it and link it to this night, uh, art after dark, a night to remember. Okay, so when you encounter questions with here, when they talk about look at a paragraph and talk about the photograph, this is a more challenging kind of question because the first thing you need to always do is to describe the photograph. Okay, after describing the photograph, the next thing is to link it back to the question. This is often easier said than done. Why? Because students don't know which part of the paragraph they are looking the picture is linked to. Okay, and how do we overcome this is actually to ask yourself, what is the main point of the paragraph? Usually photos, and usually from an advertiser point of view, you want photographs to be linked to your main point, because when people remember the photograph, it triggers the memory of the marketing campaign, or in this case, it's trying to trigger that idea of the art after dark, and it hopes people will attend this event. Okay, sadly we are unable to go through this process in full because we don't have the picture, but I hope everybody is aware of the steps needed to do well in this kind of question. Okay, okay, now let's take a look at question 4. Look back at the whole web page. Give two ways in which the organizers are trying to attract as many people as possible. The idea is here, attract as many people as possible. So we need to ask ourselves, these people are who? They are basically your target groups, which may include your teens, your adults, young families, elderly, children. Okay, I'm not going to list down the whole list for you, but you get what I mean. So this question about the target group is basically what I was sharing with everyone earlier on how these numbers are significant and how this information here will affect your target audience. Okay, so looking at this poster or the web page, I would say that the two things that stood out to me was the idea here. Okay, I'll highlight in green. Art for all. This all here shows that um, everyone has something to take part in. The next thing that I observe is actually here 100 exciting events spread over 5 different districts. So it shows the scale of event, the large scale of event that will allow different groups of people to participate. Remember what I talked to you about the districts? We're looking at the different kind of makeup, the different percentage of people of different age groups and things like that, different backgrounds. All right. Okay, so let's see how we're going to put these two ideas together. So when we talk about for all, there's this in the inclusion. I think this is the important word. Okay, the inclusion of people of all ages and backgrounds to join the event. Then the next thing is this 100 exciting events. Spread over 5 districts suggests a large scale event that caters to different groups of people. Okay, you see, the idea is after you give that kind of evidence from the text, these two, you need to link it back to the question. Because the question is not about just what are the features, but in what they're asking how the features can attract people. So there needs to be some mention about the method. So for example, when we talk about art for all, we're looking at inclusion. So they will join the event because no matter what's my age, my family background, I still can join. Next, when we talk about the 100 exciting events, you need to emphasize that it's a large scale, and therefore increase the you will cater to different groups of people. All right. Okay, I'll just give everyone some time to take in the information here. And if you have any questions regarding paper 2, especially visual stimulus, please ask them. Okay, if there are no further questions, then let's take a quick look at our text tool, the narrative text. Okay, for some of those of you who are unfamiliar with this O level change, uh, currently the O level syllabus would dictate that there will be two visual stimulus texts. So text 1 and text 2 would be uh, asked together from question 1 to question 5 or question 4, depending on the mark allocation. And the second text would be something that is more wordy, and the first text is usually a poster, so there are more pictures. And the idea of why they are doing that is they want to see how you can link text 2 with the words with some of the pictorial elements that are present in your text 1. Okay, so due to the limited uh, practice papers which we have from the Cambridge O level with regards to this, uh, I'll find a day where we can go through the 2024 paper. Okay, that will be the most accurate representation of what is being tested at the O level examinations. But for now, I think it's good to build up that kind of stamina as well as that kind of and that eye for important details just by looking at our poster alone first. Okay. With that, let's take a look at our text. So again, for text 2, uh, is usually very story based, and the use of literary devices will actually put our friends who do literature at a certain advantage. Well, but that being said, I think what is more important for us who don't do literature is you need to have a strong foundation in your vocabulary, such that when they try to use flowery language to describe things, you at least can sense make of what is happening to the character. That's more important. All right. So the idea is in every paragraph, you need to know what is happening. So your 5W and 1H need to be very clear. Okay. You don't have to write it down explicitly at the side. I mean, most of your teachers may do that to help you understand the text, but during an examination setting, you just need to have this idea in your brain will do. All right. Usually, I like to read this synopsis very closely. So even if I don't understand what is happening in some paragraphs, at least I know what's the big idea. Comprehension is about understanding the big ideas behind the text as a whole, as well as the secondary ideas which are in every paragraph. Okay, so when the question tests you, there is a ratio that the markers will use. So paragraph 1, I'm only testing the students 2 questions. So how am I going to test? Okay, the examiner will decide every paragraph. They only will test how many questions with regards to the kind of secondary ideas the text can bring, and all these all these noteworthy points that can be tested. So let's say we have those vocabulary questions. It's because those vocab words actually bring out a certain idea or certain main point from the text. That's why it's worth testing. Okay, so let's delve into the content of this text here. So we're looking at how this grandmother, Alma, was very rich, and how she was suffering from dementia and didn't want people to know about her condition, probably due to her ego, or she's afraid that people will look down on her. As such, she requests to move to a nursing home to be isolated from the world. Okay, that's the idea of the text. So what happened in the text. I'm not gonna let you read through the whole thing. There is no value in me letting you read this when you can access it elsewhere. But I'll just briefly share with you some of the things we need to know. Okay, so the first paragraph tells you about this complete change. So how she behaved in a very abnormal way. I think some of the vocabulary here are important. Dressed like a monk, uh, shutting herself away in an old people's home, suddenly cut herself off from the world, family, and friends. Okay, all these are elaborations of a main point, which is her behavior was changed suddenly and totally. Okay. Now, then the subsequent paragraph tells you how this day where her behavior change happened, how it went, right? So suddenly she say that she cannot go for some reception where they raise fund for the family's Bella Belasco Foundation, as oversee over here. Yep, and how uh, you will see that over here, uh, here the emphatic tone brook no argument. So it's basically something that is something very simple, which means that uh she did not accept argument. So she was like straight to the point and she wants people to obey her instructions. Okay, and you can see over here that the daughter-in-law also followed her instructions closely. She just closed the door suddenly after she said that she doesn't want to argue. So you need to have an idea of what kind of character she is, what kind of qualities does she possess. Okay, then I think some important words is this one, benefactors. So these benefactors are basically your donors, so people who donate a lot of money to charitable organizations. Now moving on, you can see that the way that the Alma behaved, right? So for this paragraph here is very straight to the point. How her behavior was drastically changed. So the main idea is she got together with her accountant and her lawyer and gave the money to her son. The next thing is here. She just informed that she wants to move to the nursing home that nobody heard of. So you can see Larry was very shocked. Then on the last paragraph, it's very interesting that she bought a lime green smart car, which is a very small car, right? And she said that if she ran over someone, she will not kill them. So it will also tell you something about Alma's character. Okay, I'm just pointing out all these more relevant phrases to kickstart that brainstorming process, because we'll be discussing them quite in depth during our question analysis. Okay, and you can see over here, the last sentence here actually tells you why the grandmother was behaving very weirdly, why there was a complete change in the behavior. Okay, okay, with a general idea of the text, let's go through some of the questions. At the beginning of the text, we learn that Sam's grandmother underwent a complete change. So over here, you need to ask yourself, what is this change? The change is actually in her behavior, how she talked to people, how she viewed life, and you need to talk about the language use. So the dead giveaway from the text is when flowery language is used. You know that those will be part of your answer. But I think the next step is actually how to explain the flowery language. Okay, so I think for this text, the language use isn't too bad. You probably will understand it, even if you are not a literature student, right? So as I pointed out earlier, the three different noteworthy behavioral changes here. She suddenly cut herself off from the world, shut herself like a in an old people's home, and she dressed like a monk. I think the only challenge is this. The other two is pretty obvious. We are looking at some kind of social isolation that is deliberately done by the person herself, right? So let's take a look at how to explain this. So suddenly cut herself from the world, family, and friends. Okay, I would say this suggests that Alma's deliberate self isolation was unexpected by her loved ones. We show that complete change actually took place because the outcome, which is the shock, was not something that people would expect. The next one is over here, shutting herself in an old people's home. Actually suggests that Alma did not like, or rather, she did not want to interact with people she was familiar with. Why? How do I derive it? It's because of this were old people's home. The people there, the nurses, the caregivers there are complete strangers. So the idea is, when somebody is put there, uh, your your own family members will not take care of you. It's somebody else. So usually it will be the family members that put the aged parents there, but in this case, the grandmother herself wants to go there. So you will speak volumes about her intention, especially with the interactions with her family members. Okay. Lastly, she dressed like a monk. So when you have this kind of simile, you need to ask yourself, how does a monk dress? I have in mind the Tibetan kind of monk, so it's like the orange drab. For males, it's usually bald. They are very quiet in a very zen mode. So you could see that the way the monk dress is very modest, very plain. And if you look deeper, you could tell of a person's character as very stoic, someone who is very unaffected by the happenings of the world, you know. So you could tell that Alma's opinion towards the towards her outward appearance changed to become very plain, or you can say stoic or simple. Okay. Now let's move on to question 6. In paragraph 2, we were told Alma was standing at the window staring out into the mist. What does this tell us about her thoughts? So when you have this kind of question trigger, tell us. Usually we are looking at inference. So something you cannot find it in the text. Okay. So when we go about with this kind of question, the first thing is to look at this phrase, staring out into the mist. So you need to ask yourself, why would she be staring out? Usually when we watch movies, read books, when people are just staring and looking, it's probably some kind of introspection or reflection. You are thinking deeply, right? So it could actually suggest that In this case, it tells us that what tell us about Alma's thought. It could tell us that Alma was lost in her thoughts, or she could be contemplating on her future, or it could be even at she was at loss of how to uh, break the news to her family. When you talk about inference, there's always more than one answer. So the idea is how you use the evidence in the text to come up with that conclusion. Okay, so the steps to do it, I would say, is rather straightforward. You look at this first, and you ask yourself, what do you make out, or what can you think about? What's the closest thing that you can think about when, with reference to your life experiences watching movies and books? I think together with the situational um, awareness of the text, you will be able to gain that kind of perspective of what is happening to Alma. Okay, and you can see this question has a second part where he talks about how this behavior supports Doris's opinion. Right, so Doris's opinion was uh, that her brain had short circuit. Right, so we need to make some mention about this fact. Okay, I'll show you where is it from. Is somewhere in paragraph 2 here. I'm not going, he can't count on me for anything. Yeah, she must have some kind of short circuit in the brain, Doris said. So you need to ask yourself, what is a short circuit? Okay, so I searched up the definition. So it's basically some kind of electrical connections are not working. So this also refers to some kind of dangerous conditions, right? So with that in mind, when you look at how the electrical connections, or rather that kind of electro neurotransmitters of the brain is not functioning well, and it will lead to very dangerous outcomes, right? She cannot think properly and reason rationally. So looking at our answer, or how to answer the question, right? The first thing you need to do is you need to talk about how the short circuit in her brain suggests her intellectual abilities are not functioning normally. Resulting in a paradigm shift, or you can say a complete change in her behavior. Okay. Now moving on, they say her emphatic tone brook no argument. So, as I mentioned earlier, brook means that you don't accept any argument. So, when people tell you that you don't argue with me, so you can tell that actually, you see, it suggests about. So you need to infer again. So you look at the phrase that is quoted for you. Brook no argument. So you need to think. So what does this phrase mean? That's the first step. The second step is, so how does this how understanding this brook, that means do not accept any argument, how will it affect Alma and her feelings? Well, I think the most straightforward answer is that Alma was firm in her decision. You could even say that she was confident in her decision making outcome. Okay, as you can see, when you have a lot of these suggest question is about inference, and my greatest fear for my students is that they infer wrongly because they probably have a poor understanding of the vocabulary inside the text. I'll say this is not something that you can prepare, but I think the easiest way to feel secure about it is when there are words that you're unsure, you make the active effort to actually search up the meanings. I think that will already give you that kind of baseline of understanding of general vocab words that are tested in this kind of narrative text. Okay, and you can see that when the Doris closed the door silently after Alma broke the news that she's not going to attend the reception, right? It probably will tell you something about how Doris complied actually. She obeyed, right? So all these actually point to how Doris respected Alma's decision and did not question. Yeah, in fact, you can just say he respected Alma because it's on the basis that she's more senior. All right. All right. Moving on. Give two details from paragraph 3 that show the family spent a lot of money on the reception. You can see these two details is one of the easiest questions. You just need to quote the necessary stuff. Now, how do we zoom in on the relevant stuff? When we talk about spend a lot of money, there needs to be some kind of vocabularies that words that come to your mind. For example, lavish, extravagance, etc. You got to do have to there will be some description of the money that was spent, right? So looking at our text and the where is the place, you can even see here chamber orchestra musicians were preparing the equipment, the cooks were busy with the banquet, and they have waiters also lah, right? Waiters of befitting. So you could simply say you can see so when we talk about spending a lot of money, we are looking at how this a lot of professional people actually come down to help out with the preparation, right? So we'll say that where is it? Like firstly, okay, when you talk about two details, I always like to do firstly and secondly. So it tells the marker that here are my two details, do not mix them up. So you can say firstly, the family hired waiters and cooks for the reception. And secondly, uh, there were chamber orchestra musicians performing at the event. Yeah. Okay. Now looking at question 9, explain the what is meant by the most important benefactors. As I've shared earlier, this refers to the donors and how they usually donate a lot of money for the charitable cause. Now you can see why is it most important. So from that kind of charitable perspective, they are most important because they provide the most money for you, the most resources for you, right? So you will just refer to the donors who contributed substantially, that means start contributed a lot of things and money to the Belasco Foundation. Okay, so this one is quite straightforward. Okay, so this is also a very straightforward question. It tells you to just look at the paragraph and quote two dramatic decisions that Alma made. So if you look at our text here, they already tell you from the get go. Dramatic changes started. And tell first, see, so you can actually talk about how she handed over the wealth to Larry. And next is she announced that she was going to live at a large house where nobody heard of this place. That's why it's dramatic because you're trying the grandmother is trying to go to somewhere where nobody knows. So it'll be the two dramatic changes is after meeting her lawyer and accountant. Alma gave a bulk of her wealth to Larry. Secondly, to move to a nursing home. Okay, so this will be our two main points. And if you read closely in the text, you could see that the son was quite shocked that Alma was going to a nursing home. So why do you think Larry will react this way? Because it's I would say this is quite straightforward because you're looking at the expectation versus reality kind of comparison. So the expectation is probably that Larry wanted the Alma to live her golden years in the family home and probably enjoy the kind of love and family companionship, right? So you could say that Larry expected Alma to live out her golden years. Live, if you want to use some flowery language, you can live out the rest of her life. Okay. In the family home. Surrounded by family members. However, Alma wanted to be isolated in the nursing home. So the idea is uh, companionship versus isolation. I think that's the main takeaway you need to contrast here. Okay. Then the last question, and what are we going to tell people? So probably here, this question, what are we going to tell people, is probably how Doris didn't know how people would think of uh, Alma of the family after they inform people that Alma was going to a nursing home, right? So I could say that Doris was concerned what others would think of the family, because Alma's decision to stay at the nursing home makes it seem that the family was unwilling to look after her. Hinting the family in bad light. Okay. Now you can see why it was surprising. So when something is surprising, you need to talk about the expectation first, followed by the reality. So because the expectation and the reality don't match, that's why you will say, "Huh? Why is it the case? Why? That's why it's surprising." Okay. So to go about with this question, let's take a look at paragraph 5 first. You can see there was a chauffeur. So it's expected that Alma will travel around with the chauffeur driving her. But in reality, what happened? She renewed her driving license and bought this small smart car. So you could say, as the Bel Casco family had a chauffeur, it was expected that Alma would be driven around. However, Alma wanted to buy a car to drive it herself. Now there's also a why here. So we are looking the when you write your answer, it needs to be about explain the reason for this surprise. Okay. Now you can see over here again why. So we are looking for a reason. I think the author compares the car to an upended tortoise. Upended means turn upside down. So you just think of the tortoise, the shell and the head like that, and it's like upside down on the surface, and it's green in color. Okay. So you could say that just like how the tortoise is green. Sorry, I'm going back to the text to take a look again. So you can see upended tortoise is here. So probably your car is something like that. So now when it's turned upside down, it becomes like an upended tortoise with the wheels on the air, right? Like that. So you're trying to say you need to explain what upended means first. Just like how a tortoise that is green is turned upside down. Almost lime green car was overturned by people. So you're trying to draw this comparison of the color and how it's upside down like the car when it's overturned. Okay, and not forgetting how Alma talked about how the reason to drive the small car is so that she will not kill somebody if she accidentally knocks into them, right? So you could tell that probably she was considerate. Okay. Now moving on to the last few questions. So in the first paragraph, if you recall, Alma uh, was behaving very weirdly in paragraph one. Here, she didn't want her fame, she didn't want her money, she didn't want her family anymore. So it will mean that she was leaving the familiar things behind. If you look at the second and third paragraph, we recall that she's supposed to go for the charity event, but she did not want to do so. So that would mean that she is refusing to do what was expected. Thirdly, in the fourth paragraph, we see how she was very dramatic in the way that she packed everything and she gave away her wealth. She didn't want to be remembered with the family. So this would suggest that she was losing the fame and fortune. Lastly, we can see how she executed her plan. She bought the car. She asked the chauffeur to drive her to the old folks' home, things like that. So to demonstrate that she is executing her plan, it will mean that she was taking practical action. All right. Hello, Danish. All right. With that, we have come to the end of our narrative text comprehension. Are there any questions? We can stay here for a while to answer your. I'll stay here for a while to answer your questions, if you have any. All right. All in all, I'll say that this complete text that we just looked through has a balance of both higher order thinking questions that require the high level of inference, but at the same time is more or less balanced out with uh, pretty short questions that can be quoted directly from the text. The vocabulary isn't as difficult as some texts would be like. So I would say this is still quite a fair paper that students will be able to do well in. So, are there any further questions with regards to this text? If not, then we shall go for a break soon. And if you would like to join me for my afternoon lesson at 2:30, we'll be looking at some primary 5 papers again. All right, till then, see you. Bye bye.